by President Bola Tinubu, stating that it is grossly inadequate to assuage the hardships confronting workers sequel to the fuel subsidy removal. They are demanding a 300% salary increase to enable workers to cope with the challenges imposed by the deteriorating community and the economic situation that came with the removal of the controversial fuel subsidy. The rest of this news story is on page 2 of the Punch newspaper.
And I have here with me Tinubu ready for subsidy withdrawal at ship soon. Tinubu writes National Assembly to seek 500 billion for palliative. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has asked the National Assembly to amend the 2022 Supplementary Appropriation Act to enable the federal government to source 500 billion to the causing to the effect of the subsidy removal. The request is contained in a letter read on the floor of the House of Representatives by Speaker Tijani Abbas yesterday. In his letter to the federal lawmaker, the president explained that the 500 billion would be sourced for the 2022 Supplementary Appropriation Act of 819.5 billion naira. The letter titled Request for Amendment. You can find the rest of the news story on page 4 of the Nation newspaper.
Here on the Punch newspaper, there is a pictorial representation of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and the 1999 set of Nigerian Governors Forum during a meeting at the presidential villa in Abuja. Also present was the chief of staff to the government and the secretary to the government of federation. The picture is on the second page of the Punch newspaper. And still on the Punch newspaper, no fewer than 32 exotic vehicles were on Tuesday impounded by the Benue State Asset Recovery Committee, which stormed an automobile workshop in Makurdi, believed to be owned by former Governor Samuel Ortom. The chairman of Asset Recovery Committee, Ingabem, disclosed this to newsmen during a phone interview, and it was reported that the committee stormed the automobile workshop on Tuesday with towing vans to move vehicles, despite resistance by workers at the facility. The rest of this news story is on page 8 of the Punch newspaper.
And I also have here with me CBN direct payment of dollars received in naira. From the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, yesterday came a directive to international money transfer operator pay dollars received through diaspora remittance to domestic beneficiaries in naira. A curricular to bank and the public of CBN Director, Trade and Exchange Department, OS Nanji, listed 62 appropriate IMTOS to carry out the directive. In the list had the Western Union, World Remit Limit, Cash Plot Limited, Transit International Limited, Leaders Meet Limited, Technology Solution Limited, and Interswitch Limited. Other banks, Albertus Limited, Commit UK Limit. And you can find the rest of the news story at page 5 of the Nation newspaper.
Still on stories coming from Benue State, immediate past governor of Benue State, Samuel Ortom, says former Vice President Atiku Abubakar lacks the moral grounds to accuse him of corruption after what former President Olusegun Obasanjo had written about him. Ortom also described that Atiku was the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party in the last general election as the first presidential candidate in the country to be rejected by key party stakeholders. Atiku's aide has declared that Ortom was one of the worst governors in the history of Nigeria. His case file at the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission is bulky, and he was recently invited but released because of Wike's intervention. Responding, Ortom said Atiku is angry because Governor Ortom and his colleagues in the G5 refused to be used by him as special purpose vehicles to circumvent and thwart the resolve of Nigerians to produce a president from the southern region. The rest of this news story is on page 15 of the Punch newspaper.
And I have here with me Assembly to complete screening of Adelica's nominees Monday. Screening of commissioners and special advisor nominees begins yesterday at the Osun State House of Assembly. The screening is expected to end on Monday. Deputy Speaker and Chairman of the Screening Committee, Akinyode Oyewusi, stressed the Self-Men Committee readiness to carry out the throughout job. The exercise should not be seen as an attempt to switch hunt any of the nominees, but a legislative procedure to choose the best. And you can find the rest of the story on page 27 of the Nation newspaper.
The Otun Olubadan of Ibadan land, Chief Rashidi Ladoja, has dragged the Oyo State Governor Seyi Makinde and the Olubadan of Ibadan land, Oba Lekan Balogun, to court over the recent elevation of 10 Ibadan high chiefs to bearded-wearing Obas. In the suit filed before the Oyo State High Court in Ibadan, Ladoja also joined the newly elevated Obas as defendants. It was gathered that on June 22nd that Makinde approved the elevation of Ibadan High Chiefs to Obas following Olubadan's recommendation. The rest of this news story is on page 15 of the Punch newspaper.
And I also have the similar story on the Nation newspaper. Ladoja sues Makinde and holders. Former Oyo State government Rashid Ladoja has sued Governor Seyi Makinde, Olubadan of Ibadan, Oba Lekan Balogun and others at the Oyo State High Court over the elevation and coronation of his fellow members of the Olubadan in council. Of the 11 council members, 10 were crowned king last week, but Ladoja rejected the process, while Oba Balogun is the first defendant. The 10th elevated Obas, or second to 11th defendant, Governor Seyi Makinde, is the 12th, and the Attorney General is the 13th defendant. Ladoja, in his prayer before the court, accused Oba Balogun of plotting to stop him from becoming the Olubadan. He also said elevating the high chief to Obas contravenes the Oyo State of Nigeria. You can find the rest of the news story on page 27 of the Nation newspaper.
The scheduled arraignment of the resident electoral commissioner in Adamawa State, Udu Yunusa Ari, failed on Wednesday, as he failed to appear at the Adamawa State High Court in Yola, where he was billed to be arraigned. The Independent National Electoral Commission filed charges against the Adamawa Rec for controversially declaring the governorship candidate of the All Progressive Congress in Adamawa State, Aisha Dairu, alias Benani, winner of the last governorship election in the state. INEC nullified the declaration and instead announced the incumbent Adamawa State governor and candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Amadu Fintiri, as the winner of the poll. You find the rest of the story as INEC prosecutor films as Adamawa's Rex arraignments fail on page 15 of the Punch newspaper.
And I have here on the Nation newspaper, Guinness World Record warns against unapproved attempt. The Guinness World Record has warned Nigeria making concert effort to break various records in different categories. Guinness World Record announced this in a cautionary remarks during a Twitter exchange with a Nigerian who tweeted at them to inform the body about her intention to attempt 2 record-breaking feats. The warning is coming day after the World Record Body advised Nigerians to apply for confirmation before attempting to break any record after Eldabasi 100 hours cook or throne challenge in May. Many other Nigerians catch the syndrome and start off to dilute of the record breaking at attempt. You can find the rest of the news story on page 28 of the Nation newspaper.
That's an interesting story though. The federal government has ordered surveillance patrol of the newly opened second Niger Bridge and its surroundings by security agents following a case of vandalism. It was learned that some hoodlums vandalized the section of the bridge and made away with some fittings. The 336 billion naira bridge was unveiled by former President Muhammadu Buhari in May, and the federal government orders patrol as the second Niger bridge has been vandalized. You find the rest of that story also on page 15 of the Punch newspaper.
And I have here with me again, Rep walks out member for improper dressing. A member of the House of Representatives was typically walked out of the House yesterday for allegedly improper dressing. The House rules make it incumbent on members attending the plenary to wear a suit and a tie or a traditional dress with a cap to match. The improperly dressing member, whose names could not be immediately be ascertained, had walked into the plenary towards the end of the day's proceeding. It sat on the second floor being used as an alternative chamber by the members of the Green Chambers, raising and ordered Billing Ozwawu, APC, drew the attention of the House the mode of dressing of the incident members, saying it is contravened to the dressing code of the members of the House of Representatives. You can find the rest of the story on page 28 of the Nation newspaper.
The Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited (NNPCL) and its joint venture partners plan to add about 192,000 barrels of crude oil per day to Nigeria's oil production between the third quarter of this year and the first quarter of 2024. NNPCL announced this on Wednesday at the ongoing Nigeria Oil and Gas International Conference in Abuja. It stated that the crude oil volumes would be produced from various oil mining licenses. The Executive Vice President upstream NNPCL Adokie Tombamie, who was represented by an official of the company in Uganda, Olanrewaju, said the oil firm had resumed crude oil production activities on many OMLs, adding that the wells would deliver and increase Nigeria's oil earning soon. The rest of this news story is on page 21 of the Punch newspaper.
And I have here with me second Niger bridge vandalized, fitting removed. Engineers representative for the second Niger bridge, Sheyi Martins, has condemned removal of a road fitting from by a vandals. He also attributed low usage of the bridge to security challenge facing the region, stressing that the expert mandate was to construct the bridge to decongest the traffic. Speaking with the reporters in Onitsha yesterday, Martins assured that the federal government would beef up security around the bridge to protect it from further vandalism. You can find the rest of the news story on page 29 of the Nation newspaper.
Oil marketers have called on the federal government to suspend the value-added tax on diesel, as it would further increase the burden on Nigerians. The chairman of the Major Oil Marketers Association of Nigeria and chief executive officer of Adova Energy, Olumide Adeosun, made the appeal during an interactive session with journalists in Lagos on Tuesday. He suggested that temporarily exempting diesel from VAT would help alleviate the financial burden for the general population, especially amidst the petrol prices hike. The rest of this news story is on page 24 of the Punch newspaper.
And I have here the lighting kills 3 kidnappers in Kwara. 3 suspected killers had been reportedly killed by a thunder strike in Kwara State. The incident occurred early this week in the address of Aloore Agor community, Ifelodun local government area of the state. It was gathered that the incident might not be unconnected to the resolve of the local vigilante team in the Igbomina axis to check security challenge. Footage of the viral video of the incident allegedly that those struck by thunder were members of the 8-man kidnaps gang that operated in Iwo Iseyin local government area and 2 weeks. I'll take that again. Those struck by the thunders were members of the 8-man kidnappers gang that operated in Iwo Iseyin local government area about 2 weeks ago. You can find the rest of the news on page 29 of the Nation newspaper.
The Labour Party and its standard bearer in the last presidential election, Peter Obi, have kicked against the offer of blood slots to state governors, including those elected on the platform of the opposition People's Democratic Party and the Labour Party by President Bola Tinubu. Kwara State Governor and Chairman of the Nigerian Governors Forum, Abdurrahman Abdulrazak, disclosed at a meeting of the forum in Abuja on Tuesday night that the president asked the governors to nominate competent persons to serve in boards and parastatals of federal government agencies which were dissolved. Obi kicks as Tinubu offers opposition governors slots. The rest of this news story is on page 9 of the Punch newspaper.
And I have here with me Ogun Central deserve ministerial slot. The Ogun State Integrity Group has asked President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to consider the fairness, justice, and I'll take that again. The Ogun State Integrity Group has asked President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to consider the fairness, justice, and equality when picked ministerial nominees from Ogun State, saying the nominees should come from Ogun Central. The group argued that Ogun East has Governor Dapo Abiodun and Ogun West as Deputy Governor Noimot Salako Oyedele. Group leader Wale Koka, who addressed reports yesterday, said any arrangement short to their fair demand would put Ogun Central out of the 2023 political equation. He also reminded Bola Ahmed Tinubu and the party leader that the Central has the largest voting population, and he demonstrated same during the last general election. And you can find the rest of the news story on page 27 of the Nation newspaper.
So just before we draw the curtain this morning on newspaper review, the Super Eagles may be drawn against arch rivals Ghana, South Africa and Angola in the African qualifiers for the 2026 World Cup. The draw ceremony for the qualifying round of the 2026 World Cup holds in Abidjan in Ivory Coast on Thursday today after the 45th CAF Ordinary Assembly at the same venue. And so with this, we have come to the end of newspaper review section this morning. Thank you very much for joining us, and please still stay tuned for other programs coming up on the stable of Aloore Radio. And don't forget to visit our Facebook page today, www.facebook.com/Aloore Radio. And this is how we will know that you have attempted by liking our posts, liking our programs, and also making comments. And while you do that, make sure you are following Aloore Radio on every of our social media platform. My name is Taiwo Badekeshi. I'll see you again. Thank you very much for joining.
And my name is Oluwabukumi Adesoya. Do have a wonderful day ahead of you.
SafeMusicList.com, royalty-free music for marketing and promotional videos.